when I would first sit down and try to meditate in the jail cell, it was just me. I didn't have to share it with anybody else. I would sit for what felt like an eternity, and then I'd look over across the unit and I could see the clock behind the corrections officer's desk. It had literally been like 3.5 minutes had gone by, and I'm like, oh my God. But what I
Yeah,
started to find is
totally.
somewhere in those 3 to 5 minutes was this freedom I had never experienced before. There was a peace, there was an absence of suffering, that I had never experienced anywhere else. And it was almost like, I wonder what two of these would do. Kind of the same way I was with my substance use, right? Like, what if we could meditate for 10 minutes,
Ooh.
But again, also starting to see that my relationship to the things around me, which leads to my substance use, it all starts in here. It all starts inside the body. And so being able to head off a craving, being able to head off something that always arises inside, but we got to dial things back just enough to be able to start to see that this is something that manifests internally and then it becomes an external action. It becomes some external, probably not so skillful words and other things. And so I started to realize this is the intervention that I can utilize. If I can't raise a sponsor, if I can't go to a meeting, this is the inner resource I need in times of dis-ease. Just in the human condition, which I'm sorry, we're all kind of subjected to. Life is just plain unsatisfactory at times. And so being able to see that as something that just is, not something to be fixed, not something to medicate the ways that I like to, that was like a really eye-opening experience, because I started to cobble together fellowship one night a week, but I also could go back to my unit and I would started meditating at almost any opportunity that I had, because literally I was chasing this new thing, just like I did with substances. But I'll take the trade-off. There's been far more positive fruits of meditation practice than practice of my addiction, for lack of a better term.
That's great. I know that Heather is chomping at the bit to jump into the conversation now that we've turned it towards yoga and meditation. So let's spend a little time there. I do want to eventually get to talking about where you are now and all the work that you do surrounding advocacy. But Heather, why don't you jump in with any questions that you have around this part of Joe's story?
It's such a rich topic. I love that you found this while you were incarcerated, and that you were able to utilize it on a daily basis, sometimes several times a day. I've been reading the beginning of your book lately, and I was just really touched by, what a different experience or choice you made there to do that practice, and to, like you talked about, not going out into the yard and things like that, and being out with the other people that you had been running with on Third, but going into your space and going into the breath and mindfulness and doing the poses. I loved how you talked about doing yoga first and then how you could be more still and actually sit. Could you go a little further into talking about how you have used that mindfulness and meditation as your program of recovery, Joe?
Yeah, thanks, Heather. It's like, I think Johan Hari really, I want to say coined the term, or he's definitely helped make it popular if he didn't initiate it, but that the opposite of addiction is not sobriety, it's connection, right? And so, and I think I talk about this a little bit in the book, is connection to what though, right? I'm not saying the connection itself isn't an accurate term, but we need connection to community. We need connection to resources, depending where we are on the path. We need connection to a program, um, shelter, those kind of things. The other side of it I look at is, if I talk about it, addiction or substance use disorders as a full flight from reality, I don't see anything more connecting as part of the recovery process as a return to this moment, a willingness to be with what is. Because so much of my use was, I'm having this internal experience, and I don't want it. So much of life is working to get what I want and pushing away that which I don't want. So I look at it as, that is kind of my metaphor for why I do the practice, is if everything in my chaotic use is trying to pull me out of right here, the most radical thing I can do is turn back towards that moment. And that's with the principles behind mindfulness, right? Is, to turn with curiosity, with kindness, with a lack of judgment, to try to be equanimous, to not be polarized by the things that I've been polarized for so long. So like not, it's easier said than done. Um, but for me, what that looks like is I don't want to say non-negotiable, but I sit close to non-negotiable 6 days a week, right when I get out of bed, minimum 20 minutes up to 45 sometimes. And to me is it's that time getting out of bed, getting into the day, doing that before I walk out into the world, because there's going to be a lot of reasons for me. I get on the freeway, if I stop for a coffee, I drive from Tacoma to Seattle. There's all kinds of opportunities to practice every morning. It's a lot better if I start to practice at home so that I can show up a little bit more skillfully without throwing finger signs out the window in the car at people, because I am diseased in that moment that I'm not getting where I need to go as fast as I want. So I found that an early morning practice, before I get into the shower, before I do anything else, go straight to the cushion and just sit with what is. It's like I haven't been conditioned by the world externally. I haven't been on the phone yet. I haven't opened up the emails. And there's a piece that's accessible. There's an innate true nature of myself, which is to just be okay with what is. To an extent, I realize that's maybe not everybody's experience like that. If we live with severe mental health challenges and things, it may not be. There's a privilege in a lot of my experiences, that have been afforded to me. But I really find that having a non-negotiable practice every day, and sometimes if the day is difficult, I use my lunch break to sit again, because a lot in the work that I do, and also for myself, is I do peer work, I do social services stuff too, and it's exhausting work in a sense, while it simultaneously be enriching. But how do I also afford the people around me the same version of myself that the guy that got up and did a meditation practice, the people between 9 and 12 get that guy? What happens after I take my lunch break for the people from like 1 to 4? Do they get the same Joe? And so at times is also knowing that it's also it's the kindest thing I can do for myself. And in turn, if I do for myself, that I can also do for others in that capacity. And so I find that the formal practice, that sitting piece, that intentionality to get down on the cushion and sit with whatever is present, whether it's the physical discomfort of just getting out of bed, the thoughts in my mind, or just seeing the thoughts come by as just a movie that my mind is trying to attach to, or a car of craving that is going to throw me in the trunk and take me up I-5, thinking I need things to be different than they are, right? And so that turning towards seeing what is, kind of what's on the horizon for today with the way that my mind is showing up. And then also that willingness to stop, breathe, turn towards. And see a lot of that, and the later steps in the 12-step programs too, is that pause through 86 through 88, 89, and the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, is that really like looking, it's an opportunity to turn towards practice, towards reflection. What is the impact on the world around me? What's the impact on my immediate family? And so I look at the formal practice and then the invitation for those informal opportunities to the breath is the opportunity to turn towards what is here in the moment. We don't have the breath of the future or the past. Same with sounds. I have all these wonderful tools available to me right here in this vehicle, in this vessel, the body, and the sensory experience to be brought right back here to this moment. And so to me, it is the most core component of my recovery, looking at it through that same lens of, if the opposite of addiction is not sobriety, it's connection. For me, for this guy in recovery, connection to this moment is the best recipe for recovery for today or for the next 5 minutes that I have access to.